Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterland universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode. We've got a wonderful guest for you with us here today. Quickly want to shout out Aquila's Marketplace. Those guys continue to do very cool stuff over with the new marketplace. If you haven't gotten to check it out, go check it out. They've also just released their pre-token sale, PAQL, over on the Hive blockchain. They've got a DAO going with some pretty cool functionality involved, and continue to kind of shift the dial in terms of putting on what they're trying to accomplish within Splinterlands and Hive ecosystem and crypto in general. So yeah, go check out Qualis. Without further ado, we got I think I introduced you last time as the Dreamer of Dreams, and I think I got an eye roll. But let's roll with it again. We got the Dreamer of Dreams, the head of creative over at Splinterlands. He's always got something up his sleeve to release eyecandy. You already know who I'm talking about. We got the one and only NateAguila. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Nate, thanks for being here. We've got, so much stuff to talk about, Splinterlands related, but, first I want to kind of get a peek behind the curtain on you a little personally. And I've kind of wondered, if there were any sort of characters or fictional series that you have thought have been, kind of big inspirations to you, either artistically, through your, developing your artistic journey, or even just for Splinterlands. And if, you could kind of give us, a couple of those and let us know what those are.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely a geek at heart. I think it was in 6th grade. So yeah, around 6th grade, I stumbled upon Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. So I read. I don't remember what prompted me to read the book. I mean, I was a normal kid out riding my bike, doing my thing, playing a kid of the 80s. But for whatever reason, I decided to read the Chronicles of Narnia, and I devoured them. I was like, whoa, it just opened up, like suddenly a part of my brain just kind of unlocked. And I was like, I can imagine walking through a wardrobe, a magical world, all this other stuff. And as soon as I finished the series, I was like, whoa, I had no idea. What else can I consume? So, of course, the next thing was The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. I zipped through that as fast as I could. I think I read it a second time, 2 times in a row. And then I was like, more. Pretty soon, it didn't take long for me to back then, geez, what were the bookstores? I mean, we had bookstores back then.
Right, yeah. We didn't even have Barnes and Nobles yet.
Yeah, there was no Barnes and Noble. I go to the mall, I go to the bookstore, I go to the library. I would say within a couple of years, I could walk into the bookstore and pretty much all the books in fantasy and sci-fi, I was trying to find the ones I hadn't read yet. Same thing with the library. During summer vacation, most kids were out having fun. I was total nerd, man. I would drag my kid brother to the library, kicking and screaming, because of course he don't want to go. We'd show up at the library, and I would take home just stack of books. I'd plop myself down, make myself some nachos in the microwave, and hang out in the backyard and just read. That's what I did for summer vacation. So yeah, my brain is full of all these stories I grew up with, dreaming of knights and laser swords and all the rest. Of course, I'm a big, Star Wars geek and fan. I'm a big Marvel fan. After devouring regular books, soon I was on to comic books. Pretty soon I thought to myself, you know what? That's what I want to do for a living. I'm going to be a comic book artist. So pretty soon I had my portfolio. I had that big old freaking black case with the handle, and I'd go to the comic conventions and badger the professionals and say, look at my stuff, and that was fun stuff. I got to meet a lot of cool people in the comic book industry doing that, and from there it just kept going. Pretty soon, as a grown adult man, trying to figure out what I want to do for a living, it wasn't a big leap to continue my journey of geekdom and pursue all that which is fantasy and sci-fi. So
nice, that's awesome. What was your first original comic book character you came up with?
Actually, I had at one point made a comic book. Like, I had a whole first issue. I literally drew the panels of every page for like a 25-30 page comic book. In fact, I think it's in storage right now. I got these big bristleboard pages where I had the pencil and inks and I did all that stuff. And it's just sitting in storage right now. Maybe someday, we'll lift the door and I'll grab that stuff and maybe it'll see the light of day. But yeah, that was like a supernatural comic book I had been working on, where imagine Navy SEALs type guys stumble upon supernatural world, and there's all kinds of cool, angel demon stuff going on. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've throughout my life, I've tried and poked at, I want to write novels. No, I want to make comic books. No, usually it's something creative, something innovative and creative, and let's make something new that wasn't there before. So yeah, that's a common theme in my life.
Was there a particular comic book character or artist that kind of really, shifted that thought in your mind that, wow, comic books is definitely the avenue that I want to pursue? Was there an artist or a particular set of characters? Or
I would say, I think back, I'm aging myself, but back in the day it was Marvel and DC, and then these rock star artists left those big companies to form Image Comics, and that's and they created these new IPs, and they did rather well for themselves. One of them was Todd McFarlane, and had Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, and yeah, this group of very talented individuals who started just creating their own stuff that they could own. And it's funny because there's a lot of similarity between that and, let's say, the blockchain industry, where there's so much emphasis on owning what you're doing, owning your stuff. And so that's all those guys wanted to do. They were tired of making these companies bazillions of dollars and them getting the peanuts. And they said, well, let's take hold of that. Let's make our own stuff. So, at the time, I really admired those folks. I really thought, I looked at them and they were my heroes. They were like, wow, they, David and Goliath story. They decided to, pull up from their bootstraps and make something. And so that's pretty cool. I mean, heck, Spawn is like the longest running comic book right now, I think, for an independent publisher. So that, he's still going. So good job to him.
He continues to kind of push the envelope. I know you're familiar with the guys over at SHQ Gaming and Collectible. Walking Keys is a big comic book guy, and he continues to put out content around what Todd McFarlane and co are up to. And I think he's doing, I might butcher the recollection here, but I think Walking Keys was saying something to the effect that Todd McFarlane's NFT collection and the way that he's producing and kind of minting and putting these things out to market seems to be a little bit of a pioneer approach with the blockchain stuff. So it's very cool. It's interesting that you call out that parallel, and then here we are, fast forward 30 years later, and continues to push the envelope with the IP and the artwork and getting it in front of fans. And yeah, very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, Nate. Well, obviously there's been I don't know if you got the news, but there's been a little bit of a shakeup over at Splinterlands of late. And I'd love to kind of hear your perspective as, one of the higher ups over at Splinterlands, specifically kind of looking through the lens of hindsight. were there particular issues, problems that were affecting what it was that you and the creative team were trying to achieve, and were there bottlenecks that have since been resolved? I mean, looking back, are there kind of things that have since come to light, and now we're a little bit more in the clear? I just kind of love to get your perspective looking back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's kind of like it's 2020 hindsight, right? Like, I think at the time, at any point in time throughout the company's history, I don't think anyone was like, wow, this is really, really bad. We are going the wrong direction on this. I mean, every step of the way, regardless of who's CEO or who's leadership or who's a team member or who's this or that, we came together, and knowing what we knew at the time, we made certain decisions, and it could be at a high level, or it could be at a mid-management level or a lower level. It doesn't matter. We all did what we thought was the best play at the given time. So yeah, as we look back 2020 hindsight and we say, well, we could have done that different and that. Well, of course. I mean, that's how it works. We all wish we had a time machine so we can go back and say, all right, we'll go back to when Bitcoin was a big thing, for selling for pennies, or we'll go back and we'll make this decision different or that decision different. It's like we could play that game all day long. At the end of the day, I would say that, there's always a difference of opinion. There's always through the 5 years that I've been with Splinterlands, the company, I didn't agree with every single decision. In fact, there's quite a few times where I had a difference of opinion, or I felt differently about a situation, and I would make my voice heard, just like when anyone else would make their voices heard. And we would take all that information, that difference of opinion, and the leadership, like for instance, Aggie or Matt was in the unfortunate position of having this heavy weight on their shoulders of like, well, they had to decide, like they have Nate screaming at one ear, no, we got to do it this way. And then you got someone else over here screaming another way. No, we got to do it that way. And then, they look at all the information available to them and they just make a decision. Someone has to do that. It'd be easy for me to play backseat driver and say, well, I would have done it differently. But would I have, if I was in that same position? If I was a CEO of the company right now? Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to be. That sounds like a very stressful position to be in. Would I make different decisions along the way? Yeah, I would, because I'm a different person. I have different dreams and different aspirations for where I would love to take this or that. But at the end of the day, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying that, aggro, I hope sometimes I'll see people pipe up like, oh, aggro did this wrong, or aggro did that wrong, or he was too this or too that, or like, hey, come on. I don't think any of us could do any better. And then on the other side, it's like, okay, everyone's acting like aggro got kicked to the curb or something, or like aggro's like this, like he was outvoted and out he goes. It's like, what do you mean out he goes? He's still a CEO. He's still a vital, critical, important part of the company's ecosystem. I mean, we basically cut it in half, said, all right, Splinterlands is our bread and butter. Matt's going to focus on that. And then we got everything else, basically what amounts to the future of our company, all the new ventures, all the new ideas, all the things that, we got to experiment with and see how they work and don't work, and see if we can create maybe this ambitious platform from which, all other games could sprout. Not through just us, but other third-party developers and everything else. That is no small thing. You don't take an incompetent person and put them in charge of the future. You take a very battle-tested, smart, intelligent, savvy businessman and put him in charge of that, and aggro is in charge of that. So sometimes, I'll see stuff on social media, or I'll see something in Discord, and I'll be like, okay, I think maybe people have the wrong idea here. Both Aggro and Matt, I respect and appreciate them both very, very much. And I am so happy and so glad that now we're in a position to where one is laser focused on the future and one is laser focused on what we're doing at Splinterlands right now. And they don't have to like, play this balancing act where they're, getting burnt out, trying to do everything and juggle everything at the same time. I think we're in a better position now. I think you were, indicating a little bit about, the restructuring and, how's that different and stuff like that. I would say, whenever you streamline down a company, you get rid of the excess. I hesitate to say, cut the fat, because none of those people I would consider fat. None of those people would I consider to be like, like not great at what they did. So, I don't want to use that term, but whenever you streamline it down, cut it down to the essentials, then yeah, there's pros and cons there. There's advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage clearly being there's less people now. So the question that begs the question, can we do as much as we did before if there's fewer people? But on the other hand, and I think I mentioned this previously somewhere else. I don't know whether it was Twitter or Discord or somewhere, but essentially, it increases our efficiency. It makes it so that, if there's fewer people, then there's fewer need to have more meetings. So the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, because the right hand and left hand are already working together. There's just fewer people. And usually it's kind of like when you put more and more chefs in the kitchen, it doesn't make things go faster. And oftentimes people are getting in their other's way. They have a different opinion on how the soup should be made. No, it needs more salt. No, it needs more garlic. It needs more of that. And then you have to stop, push pause. Let's stop. Let's go to the other room, sit down and have a meeting about this so we can work out whether to put salt or garlic in the soup. All right. I mean, that's just, growing pains of a company that's getting bigger. Right. Whereas if you cut it down and streamline it down, there's no argument or debate about the salt and the garlic. There's no, hey, let's step away and stop what we're doing and go sit down and have a meeting. It's like, no, let's just finish the freaking soup, right? So when I made the comment that like, hey, in some ways we might actually increase our rate of production, then that would be the reason why.
That's very cool. It's very cool. What for your team has did you guys lose anybody sort of in that split? Did anybody kind of move over to the Invenium Genesis League team, or did you kind of retain everybody on the Splinterlands team?
I mean, yes, we lost some freaking awesome people on the creative side, which sucks. It sucks, but we lost great people top down everywhere, right and left. There are a lot of good people, unfortunately had to get laid off. But having said that, on the creative side, most of creative, not all of them, there's still a handful, but a good portion of creative is independent contractors. They're still team members. They're still treated just like any other team member, but there's a little bit of flexibility there. In that, I don't have to cut people loose necessarily. I could say I'm just reducing the number of tasks they get or the number of hours they get. So creative as a whole came away from both the first cutbacks and this cutbacks as not unscathed. I mean, we were affected, but I was able to hold on to maybe a higher percentage of people by virtue of the fact that that I could say, well, are you willing to work less instead of just get rid of you entirely? You know what I mean? So so some weeks maybe we need more sound effect, or other weeks we need more animation, or another week we might need more character art or environment art, or from 1 week or 1 month to the next, I can try to divert hours to where those hours need to go, if that makes sense. So yeah, creative is a little bit more flexible when it comes to stuff like that.
So are your responsibilities just for the Splinterlands group now, or do you still have responsibilities for both camps?
Oh, you asked about Invenium too. So when it came to that side of things, creative, well, at the very beginning, like I think it was like a year ago or something, we had reassured the community that there would be minimal impact to the Splinterlands team when these other projects were happening. So take, for instance, Double Coconut, the outsourced studio we utilize for the tower defense for Soulkeep. For the most part, the development of that game happened in parallel and didn't affect the creative side that much. Although I did say, hey, look, the second that this thing starts entering into the website, then I want control back. I'm okay with saying, hey, here are some high level guidelines. Here's how you don't step on creative toes narratively. Here's how you can make sure that what you're doing doesn't conflict with what we're doing. But once those guidelines were set and they ran off to go do their own thing, then I wasn't expecting to have to worry about that stuff until they were done, and then it was going to be launched from the website, at which point I'm like, okay, let me divert some focus on that. And we're getting closer to that happening, to where like, okay, I want to make sure that if it's launched from our website, that happens a certain way, so forth and so on. For let's say Genesis League goals, wow, I mean, most of that stuff got done independently of the Splinterlands creative team. We helped out with the pack opening sequence, and we helped out with the pitch, the gameplay screen with the field. We helped with the UI design and the UX and some of the graphics and stuff like that. But I would say the wide majority of that game, whether you're talking the collection page or the market or all the other aspects of gameplay that isn't that specific one screen, then that was all on the developers and Sean, who's an awesome graphic designer, and Alicia, who's kind of been spearheading that whole thing and everything. So it hasn't really had that much impact on the Splinterlands side. Once in a while, Aggie would poke me with some ideas or projects that he may decide to move forward with on the Invenium side, and we would try to support that as best we could. And maybe those efforts will come to fruition one day, and you'll hear what those things were. But that's in our rearview mirror now. Like we're not really expected going forward to, or we haven't been asked anyways to support that side of things much anymore. So I think they intend to keep going, and so far they're doing a great job. So I don't think they need us for most things, and for the few things that they do need us for now and then, I mean, no problem. We're essentially sister companies. You don't shut the door in your sibling's face if they really need you. So we'll just make sure that whatever arrangements are made to share resources are mutually beneficial, and that it's helping bring synergy to both companies and moving the needle forward for everybody. Not just, sacrificing one to get forward motion on the other. But we'll see how that plays out. I mean, there's no guarantees, and we're still working through that stuff.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Nate. I'm curious with respect to, kind of the conversation and sentiment behind closed doors at the C-level stuff, board level stuff. I think a lot of folks, and I've heard folks on both sides of the fence with respect to Matt's absolute transparency in terms of figures, runway. I think a lot of folks were taken aback by 5 to 6 months. I think some other folks were taken aback by the fact that, I think they were expecting to hear the announcement, hey, we're out of cash now. So I'm just curious with respect to kind of the board's sentiment. Is 6 months, do we have enough time to right the ship and get everything back on track and start, I think Land, Rebellion, obviously major contributors in the engine to propel things well into the future. But what is kind of the general consensus from the board level with regards to runway and our ability to extend that?
Well, first of all, I will say that I am not a C-level, I'm a VP, but VP is not a C-class level. So I am not in those board meetings. I'm the guy outside the door with the glass, but everything sounds like Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. So I don't know. But But I will say that, in my conversations with Matt, leading up to the cutbacks and then post cutback and moving forward, it's kind of like you have two strategies here. You have strategy A, which is throw a Hail Mary pass and or hope the market changes, or hope something changes, or hope we make enough money, or hope whatever, in order to keep things moving forward. And option B, of course, is like, well, we can't live our lives hoping that the Hail Mary pass is caught, or that the market changes, or this, that, and the other. And of course, that's Matt's approach, which is like, it sucks that the cutbacks happen, but on the other hand, wow, that's a dark cloud that is no longer, quite the threat that it used to be. Now it's like, okay, we made the hard calls, we did what we have to do, and now we can breathe a little bit easier, because now, before it was like, wow, I hope Rebellion sells or we're really screwed, versus now it's like, well, we made sure that even if Rebellion doesn't sell well, we're kind of okay. It's all right. I think ultimately, I think Matt said this on a town square, where his hope and dream is that eventually, if we go with no revenue for an extended period of time, so what? I mean, that's the position he'd like to get us in, so that, we stop trying to always be behind the 8 ball, always stressed and burnt out and anxious and constantly, overextending ourselves, trying to, put one more track in front of the moving train. So I think that, being able to bake the cake for as long as it needs to, and then releasing that cake once it's finally actually truly ready and polished and beautiful to the best we can make it, versus just slopping it around, throwing it in there. Oh, it's good enough. Here, just put enough, frosting on top so no one notices it's not even baked all the way, and then just toss it out there. And if that doesn't work, let's start the new cake. Hurry up, go. Like that. I mean, geez. Option A was, I've lived through that. Option B, all right, some sucky stuff had to happen, but now that we're here, I'm kind of a little bit relieved. I mean, things are a little bit better. I feel like the sentiment internally for the team is that, okay, we don't have to make the same deadlines. If we want to take a little time to make sure that it's done right the first time, then we can consider that. That's an option now. So from that standpoint, I think it's potentially a very positive thing.
Yeah, I'm curious with Matt mentioned a number of times about the prospect of securing additional funding. He mentioned the Hive Creators Fund. He mentioned, potentially reaching out to some VC organizations. And I understand that this might be, something that's happening behind closed doors, but I'm curious with respect to, how does that conversation look from a standpoint of, as far as I know, the last trickle of real revenue came from Zerial. Before that, it was Chaos Legion, which kind of came to a little bit of a screeching halt, with the exception being that the big Archimist sale at the turn of the year last year. What does that conversation look like being presented to VCs with, going that length of time without, any sort of significant revenue, and, is something like Rebellion? And, I would assume that Matt's painting the whole picture in, kind of an elevator pitch fashion of the tokenomics and what land could do for the economy and what Rebellion could do for the economy. But how encouraged are you feeling about our ability to secure funding, whether Rebellion, sales or flops?
I think that if Matt is optimistic, which he seems to be, then I'm optimistic. And the reason that's true is because Matt is so freaking conservative. Matt is like conservative to the hilt. So if that man is optimistic, then I know we're looking good. And I could see why. I mean, it's kind of like, look at the past year where we didn't have any revenue, right? What did we do instead? Well, we built the infrastructure for what land's going to become. We built all kinds of crazy, like staked, what is it? Staked SPS market. Like we have all this DeFi infrastructure that, like, look at any other Web3 or blockchain based project or game anywhere out there that has as much depth and nuance and just layers of not necessarily complexity, but of utility. Utility, that's the key word, especially in a industry where NFTs are frowned upon, mostly because 99% of them have no utility. We're like this shining beacon of hope, this lighthouse, right? Where that's all we're focused on. It's like, we don't want to put out anything that doesn't have utility. So if anything, we spend maybe, I don't know if I want to say too much time, but we do spend an enormously amount of time. Like if I had a pie of where our focus is at, almost the whole pie is utility, 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 utility for the token, utility for the NFT, utility for that utility on top of other utility. It's like freaking insane. I mean, even looking at land or anything like that. So I think that what Matt's probably thinking, I don't know, I'm not Matt, but if you're asking Nate, then I'm guessing that, like, okay, there's a certain level of confidence in talking to a VC if you know that, hey, look, yeah, we haven't been worrying about revenue. We've been doing this instead. And now the VC's in this unique position to leverage this company that has set the launching pad and built the rocket. And we're basically saying, look, this is the ground floor. Things have never been as bad as they are now. Token prices, asset prices, whatever. But we've been building, biddling, right? We've been biddling the whole time. And this is where we're at right now. And we want to take you on the journey before we lift off. And I think, putting out Rebellion, Matt made a good point. Rebellion means that we'll finally be making revenue so that any VC could see, look, we still got what it takes. We've done this before. We've made 100-card set. We've made new abilities. We've introduced, the graphics and the shop pages and everything that goes along with it. There are still active players engaged who support the ecosystem and want to be a part of that ecosystem. They've been buying up SPS. They've been buying up DEC. They're getting ready for the pre-sale. And, and yes, we're not in a bull market right now. It's still bearish. But even so, I mean, I look at Discord, I look at, Twitter, I look at the social media feeds and everywhere else, and I still see, I see the same names I saw back in the day, years ago. I see the same people who are like just as passionate. They see what I see and what Matt sees. They see the promised land. They have this vision of the future, and they feel a level of confidence. And I think that, if a VC sees all that, they see like all the infrastructure that's been built. They see like, hey, we weren't spinning our wheels. We weren't like just sitting around, like just, doing the same old thing. I would say for every week or every other week or every month or every town hall, or for anyone who out there who listens and says, it's the same old stuff. Really, is it though? Because just look at the last year, how many updates we did and how many of those updates were innovative. They brought new features and functionality that weren't there before. We're not just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Any casual glance at the website, you just click on that little SPS balance, and then boom, this huge dashboard pops up, and suddenly you're managing all kinds of stuff just with the SPS, and you got pools, and you got the voting, and you got the freaking validator node screen, and you got the vouchers, and you got the DEC, and then you go to DEC, and there's all these, cross-chain functionality, and do you want to buy, you want to go to tribal decks or Hive Engine, do you want to do this and do that? And pretty soon, once you open the box, you're like, holy crap, there's a lot here. And there's a lot there. So I think VCs will see that. I think they'll it doesn't take much to connect the dots and say, all right, wow, they did all this for just one game in the ecosystem. Once you have land and once you start exploring what other game modes we can introduce down the road, all stemming from this very strong DeFi foundation, a much stronger foundation than I would think most blockchain games have, right? Which is usually just a centralized server, and somewhere along the line at the end, they make it so, well, hey, you can go to OpenSea and you can pay a bunch of Ethereum gas fees so that you can get this thing. And then once you buy it, bring it back here and we'll put it into this centralized, organism, this vehicle by which you can do something with it, but you probably can't do much with it. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of projects out there, but there's not that many projects that have the scope and the maturity that we do. So I think that helps.
Mm. You bring something up there, Nate, that I quickly want to acknowledge and echo in that Matt serving as not only a great barometer for general sentiment. I think a lot of folks really kind of can attach themselves to Matt's sentiment because he's got this reputation of being the very conservative bear and trying to extend longevity and that sort of stuff. And that's been missing for a couple of months. I can't remember the last time we had Matt on a town hall. So I think when he came back and with this big announcement, I know personally I felt that sense of relief as an outsider. So it's refreshing to hear that you guys, despite the layoffs and despite losing some good people and good friends, I'm sure that was shared by you guys as well. And something that I really found encouragement in and kind of serves as something really to look forward to and what I expect to really shake things up in what Splinterlands is doing and how we're kind of viewed from outside perspective, whether that's VC or potential gamers or investors, whatever that is Matt's vision for the DAO. We've always talked about it, and with his proposal for Rebellion, obviously we're getting a smoking deal of a sweetheart deal, $250K from the DAO for 50% of the revenue is massive, but even bigger than that, the way that Matt framed it in saying, it's us, the DAO, hiring you, Steemmonsters, to put together this project, I think sets a really, really cool precedent for what's to come. What are your thoughts? I know we talked about that a little bit last time, and I know that you agree with the peace, prosperity, and freedom kind of bigger vision of what Splinterlands can do for the world. And I feel like, the DAO having this precedence being set now and setting ourselves up for the longer term future. How does that play out in your mind?
No, I mean, there's a lot to that. But I will say, yes, you're right, Matt. I think that has always been Matt's dream from the get-go. I mean, as long as I've known him, he has this very strong purpose, and that purpose is to create a game that is, kind of like by the people for the people. So just, this decentralized thing that no one can take away, that no one can destroy, that is like this eternal legacy, right? And you got to admire that. You got to be like, wow, that's cool, because it's not just his legacy. He's basically saying, hey, I want to welcome everybody to participate and make this our legacy, because that's essentially what a decentralized, governance, as the way it's going, the way he wants it to be, that legacy would belong to all of us. Every SPS vote we make, every opinion that we have on which way we should go with this or that, or should we pay the company to make this or make that, or all of these things, that's like, wow. I mean, it's kind of like, if I go right now and go on the Robinhood app or something and I buy a stock of I don't know, Disney, right? Okay, I could say, hey, I'm part owner of Disney. I own part of Disney, and yet there's so much influence I can have on what Disney does. But with this vision of where we're headed and where we're going for the Splinterlands game, it is quite possible that there are, community members out there who can, make proposals, campaign for what the benefits of that proposal are, and whether or not they have a huge holding of SPS or they do or they don't, they could still have a dramatic impact on what happens in the ecosystem and the governance of the game and what we end up doing. And that's pretty incredible. That's quite the vision. Now on the creative side, I guess the only part of that keeps me up at night is trying to maintain consistency, a cohesive storytelling, a narrative, an IP that doesn't, get jumbled. I'm very much a fan of outputting polished products, and in order sometimes to achieve that level of polish, you need some sort of creative control over how the characters look and what happens to the characters, and that the style remains consistent and things of that nature. Because as soon as it becomes this hodgepodge quilt of different people's opinions on how that character should look or what style, over here it's hyper realistic 3D art, and over here it's 2D art. I mean, there's room for that in the ecosystem, but ideally, where my focus is making sure that as we navigate these waters, that we try to keep things as cohesive as possible, creatively speaking.
Yeah, Matt's kind of always said, or we've heard that we wanted to move the game and the DAO in this direction, where the DAO is hiring Steemmonsters to do this sort of thing. I didn't think it was going to happen this soon or happen with Rebellion. Was this something, when did this come up? Was this something that kind of happened after the transition, or were there rumblings that, hey, we want to try to do this as soon as possible? When did you first learn about that this was going to be the plan moving forward?
Pretty not too long before he announced it in the on the town hall or town square or whatever. But it didn't catch me surprised. I wasn't like, whoa, you're crazy. I mean, I always knew that was something that, played in the back of his head. I think we all felt like that is where the natural progression should evolve to, is where, yes, the DAO is paying Splinterlands to do certain things, and we're just the biggest contractor out there for the game's ecosystem. I think that is something that I knew, but you're right. You're right in that, did I expect it that soon? So he's not, it's kind of like, he's making very deliberate steps to get us to where he thinks we should be in order to pull that off. And I mean, like, hey, that's fine with me. That's got to be empowering, and that's got to be one of those distinguishing aspects to being a player in Splinterlands. Is like, where can you go? What community out there can you be a part of that empowers you to that degree, to where you feel like, wow, it's not just a token where I get a vote on something silly or superficial. It's like, these are heavy-weighted decisions that we're giving to the community and the governance token. And we're saying, no, it's not just, Splinterlands making all the decisions and you just guys got to live with the scraps. It's more like, no, you guys are partners in this venture, in this journey. Come with us. Let's do this together. That's crazy. That's also amazing.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the split? I mean, 50-50, like Ben said, that's a pretty sweetheart deal for the DAO. It's kind of going from nothing to half of the pack sales. That seems like a lot. What was your, take on that?
It was shocking. Yeah. I mean, shocking considering the fact that, hey, we really need money. It looks like we're doing layoffs and we're doing all this other stuff. Up until that point in time, we were like, hey, let's go and make rebellion as successful as we possibly can, so that we can make as much money as possible, so that we can keep on, surviving and keep on growing and doing what we got to do. And here comes Matt out of left field with this crazy idea of like, well, yeah, we need a bunch of money, but yeah, let's split that with the DAO. I'm like, what? What are you crazy? What's happening here? But it's kind of like it's that beautiful mind, logic. It's that like, hey, he's looking at the big picture, and he sees all the pieces floating around and coming together, and he sees how they're gonna come together. And yeah, I have complete confidence in Matt. I trust him completely in that sort of thing. I am definitely, I don't spend my day with a calculator and spreadsheets and trying to figure out, the economic questions. I'm usually over here, making cool stories and artwork and all the rest of the stuff. Not to say that I'm completely out of the loop and I don't have an opinion on that aspect of the business, but it's with Matt at the helm, it's a little bit easier to just like, sleep at night and know, yeah, if Matt thinks that's a good idea, then chances are it's a good idea.
Nate, I can't believe you don't sit there with Microsoft Excel wide open on your computer all day, man, as part of the creative squad.
You'll be surprised at how often we use spreadsheets, but I don't go out of my way to spend all day on spreadsheets.
On that note, I am curious. So obviously the layoffs were not insignificant. We lost some really good people doing some cool stuff for the company. And my last question with regards to kind of this shakeup and restructuring and what do things look like? What is the new status quo? Is creative really able to fully stay in its lane, so to speak, or are you guys being asked to don some different hats and kind of fill the gaps where maybe some team members were previously doing as a full-time job? Is it all kind of all hands on deck? We need to have some role flexibility and continue to churn out to some degree what we were doing before, or is creative still purely creative and that's happening elsewhere? What does that look like for you and your team?
Things haven't changed that much, really. There have been a few changes where I'm asking a few individuals to maybe wear a hat they weren't wearing before, or to like maybe wear multiple hats, but that's not uncommon on the creative side. For I think engineering developers, they code. And maybe the biggest dramatic difference is whether they are doing back-end work or front-end work, maybe. Maybe they're asked to, work on a language that maybe they're a little rusty on. But for the most part, there's a lot of overlap with what the devs, you put all the devs in one room, and there's a lot of overlap in the skill sets and the proficiencies. Whereas if you look on the creative side, then it's all over the place. I mean, it's like you can put a room full of the creative department in one room and ask one person what their skill set is, and it'll be completely different than the next person. Like you're talking to someone who's composing music or sound effects, and you talk to the next person, say, oh, do you know anything about that? Like, I have no idea what that person does or how to do that, but I can do character animation. Oh, wow. Are you a really good artist? No, I don't know how to draw. You got to talk to this other guy. Oh, so you do character art. So you can paint like castles and stuff. No, I'm not good at that at all. You got to talk to that person over there. And then that's the environment artist. And so it's like you go down the road, you feel you could talk to like a dozen people and they all do completely different things. So it's hard to find someone who can wear multiple hats on the creative side to like at least to an expert degree. Now, I do have a handful of individuals who can, to a certain extent, wear a few different hats. Thankfully. So if I need some raster art vectorized, they're like, okay, I need you to open up the spreadsheet because I don't want to look at it. They do okay. They'll be like, okay. Can you help me with some UI? They're like, okay. So essentially, and I mean, that's where I was at the beginning, right? Year 1, year 2. I was a good part of what was creative. So, the pack opening scene, I would need to animate that. then I would make the sound effects for it. And then on the shop page, I'm making the copy and writing out the story and the text or some, what you're reading. I'm doing the UX, I'm doing the UI, I'm doing, some of the graphics and making, all the abilities on my iPad. I'm doing the vector art and exporting them and getting them in the game, what the packs look like, all that stuff, the card packs, everything. It's like I had to be all of those things and wear a million different hats. And that was exhausting. That was like, geez, particularly since I don't think I'm really that awesome at any one of those things. I mean, I could do them if I need to, but thankfully I found a whole bunch of people that are masters. They're like better at those things than I am. So I found someone who can draw better, who could paint better, who can animate better, who can do better at pretty much every category. And I kind of like, I think my real strength lies in the fact that I could speak to those things. I know how long those things take. I know what programs need to be utilized, and I know how to do those things. But so I'm able to be the glue that kind of pieces them together and say, well, I have this vision in my head, and I'm going to need an animation. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. I'm going to need some copy. I need a story here. I need that. And I need it all come together into this one thing. And even if not everyone sees what's in my head, they see they are part of it. And by the time all the pieces come together, like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing here. And then, it kind of comes together. So I couldn't do it without them, though. That's for sure. Like I would not want to go back to the days of Nate trying to do everything. I think that the production quality of the game as a whole, I hope people have noticed everything is getting nicer and nicer and better. It's because it's not Nate trying to do everything. It's people better than Nate doing these things now. And that's awesome. I greatly appreciate my team.
That's
wonderful.
Awesome. So, yeah, you said that you guys have been focused on, just trying to make Rebellion amazing and make it so great that, people want to buy all these cards, all these packs. So I'm chomping at the bit. Let's get into it. Let's sell some packs here. How awesome is Rebellion going to be?
Oh, well, it's, I think that it is, without any exaggeration whatsoever, it will most definitely be the best set that we have ever produced to date. And that's easy to say because I probably say that every time we come out with a new set. So the challenge for me creatively is to make sure that I'm never a liar. And which forces me, like if I'm going to go in front of the world and say this is the best set we've ever done, then it better be the best set we've ever done historically. It has to be better than the set that came before. So in order to make that happen, that's quite the challenge. That means that every year I have to make sure that whether I have more people or less people on the creative team, that our standards are higher, ever growing, ever getting better and better and better, more and more polished, trying to get one step closer to that someday that AAA game experience, right? So yeah, but I can say with complete honesty, yeah, this is looking awesome. I mean, everything that I've been seeing internally from the team has been just like, whoa, this is going to be so cool. I can't wait for the players to see this stuff.
Well, we saw some, obviously you guys dropped the card frame and some cool artwork and the factions. And, we talked, at length last time about the shift from splinters to elements and, kind of these different pieces that are coming into Rebellion. We had Investigator on not too long ago and without, I don't want to throw Investigator under the bus, but he kind of subtly pointed to Rebellion being a new era of Splinterlands for more than just a card set and what that does to modern. And I kind of took that as, mechanics, which Matt has subsequently come out and backed up. Obviously new abilities and that sort of stuff is going to come into play too. How much of maybe Battles 2.0 is that something that is going to help define this era of Rebellion? Are we thinking bigger than just the cards? Is it really an era of gameplay that is being issued in with Rebellion?
Well, let's see. Without giving anything away, so this is the tricky balancing act that Matt has to play when he's saying stuff, but he's not giving all the details. I got to figure out like how to do this as well, because we don't want to, I don't want to give away anything too soon. So I will say that it'll be more than just superficial. It'll be more than just be, oh yeah, look at the frames are prettier, the ones we showed you at Splinterfest, which by the way, we have made improvements. So if you looked at what we shared at Splinterfest, it's only gotten better. Like we've had the past year to look at what we shared at Splinterfest and say, hey, it's not like we're releasing Rebellion tomorrow. Let's do better. Because we were trying to rush to create this concept art for what we wanted to do and then get it ready and put it on a slideshow when we shared at Splinterfest. But since then, we've been like, hey, let's take this out of the box, and before Rebellion launches, let's do better. Let's figure out how else we can improve this, and we have. It's looking awesome. In terms of how it's going to change things more than cosmetically or aesthetically, then I mean, it's going to. I don't know what else to say other than yes, it's going to. Luckily, you guys don't have that long to wait, because as Matt pointed out, like we might be trying to launch or announce something sooner rather than later. So it's it's coming.
So are we going to be getting the animations with Rebellion?
That's a very good question. So Battles 2.0. So the thing with Battles 2.0 is one of the sacrifices we needed to make in not just the first cutbacks, but now the second round of cutbacks is like, okay, what's critical? What's critical to the game? And unfortunately, a lot of Battles 2.0 stuff, it didn't bring more revenue to the company, at least directly. I mean, you could make the argument like, hey, if we make a more polished experience, then it's going to attract more eyes, and the more eyes get on it, the more of them will try it out, and the more of them will stick around and invest in the ecosystem. And you can make that argument that long term, it makes sense to increase the production quality, and Battles 2.0 can do that. But in the short term, as long as we're in survival mode, it's not the highest priority, Battles 2.0. And as such, animation, a lot of the resources that we would have otherwise devoted to animation, have been kind of cut or greatly diminished. And where before part of the pipeline that we had creatively was like, okay, every single character we make was going to be animated. Originally, the dream had been an idle pose animation, an attack animation, a defeated animation where you get defeated and you're like, oh, and the creature's like all sad and depressed before they die or whatever. And then a victory animation for if you do kill somebody, the unit's like, yeah. Or maybe when the whole team wins, they're like, the survivors are like, yeah, so we had been working on all that. Then the first round of cutbacks hit and we're like, oh, we can't do as much. And then the second round of cutbacks and we're like, oh crap. We're really going to have to think outside the box here for Battles 2.0. If we want Battles 2.0 to happen, then we're going to have to figure out different ways to achieve the same thing, but with the existing resources, which we're actually conceptualizing right now. We're prototyping out. We haven't given it up. So if the takeaway from this is like, oh no, Battles 2.0 is never going to happen now, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just going to be a little bit different than the original plan. And I think by the time we're done prototyping out what that looks like or what that could look like, I think that I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed. I think it's going to be fine. We're basically going to do more with less. And, I don't want to get too much into that since none of that is finalized. Everything is TBD. And I don't even know when Battles 2.0 is ultimately going to happen. But that is not the mechanics or the change in gameplay or whatever it is that we're kind of alluding to in a town hall about Rebellion. It's not specifically Battles 2.0. It's not. It's something else, and it's just as exciting, if not more exciting, than Battles 2.0. It just depends on what you value in a game, I guess, will determine whether you think it's better or worse. But I would say that it's very similar in the splash that it'll make, I think.
Nate, I don't think you could, even if you tried your best, to speak more ambiguously than you just did. So well done, man. I am so lost in what Rebellion could present. I have heard whispers of, and I don't know if you can confirm or deny this, but I've heard whispers of a new attack type potentially coming into play. Are you able to speak to that to any degree?
New attack type. Where did that come from?
I have no idea, but I've
like
heard
melee, magic, and range.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's interesting. The only thing I could think
we'll take that as a no.
Yeah,
yeah. No, I'm not expecting a new attack type per se. Although I think the more I think about it, the more I think I understand what it is that this person might have been referring to. So before I was going to say, what are you talking about? You're a crazy person. But the more I think about what it is that we have planned, the more I realize, okay, I can kind of see that. So no, I'm not, I guess it's one of those things where I am going to say no comment, but I'm not saying yes, because clearly, you caught me for you kind of like, like a new attack type. But now I think about like, okay, now I know what they're talking about. So basically, yeah, there's the seed of something there, which I can't get any greater detail about.
Man, this ambiguity is killing me, Nate.
So let's you mentioned that you guys had made some changes from what you showed at Splinterfest. Obviously, it's been a while ago. You showed some preliminary artwork, some preliminary cards with actually, the characters on them and things. So, you said you've done some changes, some refinements. I'd kind of like to know like what those refinements are. Can you tell us about any of those refinements?
I will say that we have you saw the frame at the new frame at Splinterfest, and the frame we've refined. We've made it better. It looks better. It looks nicer. The difference between standard and gold foil is more distinct, rather than just like, let's add a gold texture filter over the card. Oh, there you go. There's your gold foil. Like, no, like we really refined down to the pixel point detail. Like, look, what makes a gold foil a gold foil? What makes a standard? What could we do to restructure how information is presented? For example, if on the current card frames, if you're colorblind, those rarity gems are not helping you. It's like if the only difference between these cards in rarity is the color on the gem, and you're colorblind, like you're out of luck, man. You can't tell which one from the other. So we took the concept of a rarity gem and how it's shaped, so that if you look at the shape of the gem, regardless of whether you see the color or not, you immediately know, oh, that's a common, that's a rare, epic, or legendary. And you already see that in land, because that's how the deeds are presented. The little rarity gem at the top is shaped differently depending on the rarity, and we did that for a very specific purpose, for accessibility, like what I just finished speaking of. And then for element, that's separate, and then we're going to very dramatically I'm trying to remember what the Splinterfest backgrounds look like, but the background behind the character is going to probably be your biggest clue as to the element of magic being utilized: fire, earth, water, etc. Even though there will be a little gem to denote what the element is, one quick glance at the card and you look away and you know exactly whether that was a life card, an earth card, or a dragon card, or whatever. We're going to make it so that in a rapid strategy game like this one, where every second matters, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, little timers going down, you're not sitting there trying to figure stuff out. We want you to easily glance at it, look away, and know exactly what you saw. You know the element, you know the rarity, you know what's going on. And aesthetically, we're trying to improve it very much so that we could take your cards and you could share them with pride and put them up against any other card out there in the universe, whether it's Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or whatever other card game. We want you to look to share your cards, your NFT cards with pride and say, look at that. That looks freaking awesome. Same thing with the character art. We have a very deliberate strategy when it came to the artwork itself. We over the years, you've seen the style morph and evolve, right? It got to a certain point, like with the last card set, I think with Chaos Legion, where we had the most detail. It was very the rendering and the effects and things like that. It got a little bit more detailed. With Rebellion and then going forward, we kind of pulled back a little bit and reevaluated, and we have not quite an animated cell shaded look. That's not what we pulled off. It still looks very similar to the artwork we had before, but you'll notice that we, once you see it, you'll say, oh, okay, it's the same, but it's not. And that is going to allow us to have more impactful IP. When you look at a lot of games out there that are hyper realistic, they all kind of blend in. It becomes white noise. So my challenge to the art team was to create something that felt stylistic and distinctive, so that if you did see a whole bunch of artwork up against the wall, you immediately said, oh, that's Splinterlands right there. All that other stuff, I don't know what games, because all those games start looking alike. Even the AAA games, right? They start bleeding together over time because everyone is trying to outdo themselves when it comes to hyper realistic 3D whatever. And it's like if all of them start looking the same, then there's nothing distinctive. There's nothing, cool to say, hey, and on top of that, by creating some really awesome 2D artwork, not only does it improve our rate of production, but it makes it a lot easier to, it lends itself well to scalability for future animation and things like that. So for character rigging and making these characters come to life in a very animated show type of way, then it's a lot easier to do that with that style of artwork than if we went full blown crazy with the hyper realism, right? So yeah, there's a lot of cool things that we did in order to try to refine the overall appearance of the characters, the card frame, all that good stuff. Hopefully it scales well to the future when we start exploring other gameplay modes.
The first thing that comes to mind is, you mentioned designing the cards in a way where, at a second's glance, you're able to identify, okay, that's magic fire. Okay, that's ranged earth. In my mind, that speaks to you guys, thinking forward to the potions and items and spells piece, where you have that secondary stage of battle to, place items or place spells or whatever that's going to look like. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge that. I'm super excited to see what's to come. And I'm thinking about, I don't remember if it was this most recent town hall, but at some point recently you said that, and I was disappointed to hear this, Nate, that you couldn't recite all, 80 something abilities off the top of your head.
Yeah.
No, just giving you a hard time. But thinking about the abilities that came into play with Chaos Legion, that was when I came into the game. Chaos Legion was already underway, so I've kind of been learning the abilities backwards. But looking forwards, are you able to give us any detail around how many abilities are coming in with Rebellion, and maybe drop a little hint at what one could bring to the game?
They would kill me if I did that. I will say that just like
nobody listens to this show, Nate. It's just us talking, man.
I will say that, just like previous sets, there'll be a handful. So it won't just be one or two. You'll get a handful of new abilities, and those abilities will be very strategically not challenging, but inspired. You'll be able to do things that are call me Tim, who is our primary I guess game design lead for the mechanics behind Rebellion. He's put a lot of time and effort and thought into trying to make the abilities feel like more than just simple, it does this. Like he wants to add some nuance to them. He wants people to enjoy not the complexity, but the amount of strategic depth that that more nuanced abilities could provide to the gameplay experience, I guess is the best way to put it. So I think that for those who find that appealing, who find the strategy part of gameplay and trying to come up with new tactics and new ways to use cards in different ways, I think they're really, really going to enjoy what the Rebellion set has to offer.
Interesting. Has there ever been any talk about removing abilities from the game, or making abilities sort of specific to certain card set, or some of the older ones saying, we're going to phase these out of older cards to give those cards some, more value or more advantage in, a certain format, whether it's modern or when they move to wild?
No, those conversations have definitely happened. I don't know. There was a lot of pros and cons, and I know that at first it was like, yeah, let's just make it so that we can start phasing these abilities out because there's just so many freaking abilities, and make it so that, yes, if you're a wild player, then you must have a crazy supercomputer mind who can keep track of all these cards and abilities. And hey, more power to you. Go have fun. But in modern, let's try to keep things manageable. Let's try to limit the amount of abilities. So let's say there's 80 possible abilities in the game. Let's try to bring that list down in modern so that, new players only have to keep track of maybe half that many or whatever, right? I know that Call Me Tim and Biz have both been hard at work trying to figure out, how much of that comes into play here, and how much they could do with Rebellion while keeping things balanced, while making sure that that the gameplay is still fun and all this other stuff. So I don't envy the position they're in. They're still working hard at making that happen with the test server. We have internal test servers where we're constantly, new stats and abilities are being updated. Our internal testers with QA and tech support and all them, those guys are constantly trying to provide feedback and make sure that everything is working as intended. And so, hopefully, I would say that Rebellion is undergoing more testing than any other card set we've ever produced by far. It's not like we're just doing a little bit more testing than we normally do. No, we're doing like way more testing than we've ever did previously. So hopefully the players will appreciate that when they finally get to play with these things.
Man, Rebellion sounds like it's going to be so much fun. Are you guys considering, thinking back to kind of the different eras of Splinterlands and the sets associated with those eras? Back in the day, water was associated with magic. Alric and his supporting cast. Now it's kind of shifted. Water is definitely the melee powerhouse of the elements. Is there anything that goes through the production process in y'all's minds with respect to shifting the meta to maybe a different attack type, or maybe more defense focused, or something like that as you guys progress into new sets, new eras, or is it we're trying to balance things out and make water equally a viable option in ranged and magic and melee? What is the thought process when it comes to designing the specific kind of meta per splinter or per element?
No, in fact, what you're saying we've had meetings to discuss just those things sometimes, where it's kind of like, well, in the past, water was this. Maybe we're going to transition over to water is this for modern, for during the Chaos Legion Rebellion phase, and then maybe that morphs and changes a little bit after every set. I mean, and then crap, without giving too much away,
Feel free. Feel free to give
there's
too much
just
away.
there's so many things that Rebellion is going to change strategically, and it's not as simple as saying the meta changed. It's just layers of strategic depth that weren't there before. And so I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm really eager to see, not just how the community reacts, but how after the dust settles, and to see people sharing crazy gameplay, sharing their playback videos on social media or in Discord or whatever, and say, "Holy crap! They use the cards in a way I totally wasn't expecting." Like, when's the last time you heard discussions like that? Right? It's usually like, we're a pretty straightforward game. It's a very much a draft mode. Here, I'm going to pick some cards, and this other guy's going to pick some cards, and then we'll see what happens, and blah blah blah. And what we're proposing is that post Rebellion launch, that maybe things will be a little bit different, to where it's not so straightforward. That people are going to be able to utilize strategies they've never utilized before.
Well, Nate, I will tell you personally that I try and start that conversation on a weekly basis. I'm going to call out the unsung hero that is Dallin and Team Death. Hep is tired of hearing it. I have found a nice little niche for Dallin that I routinely go back to, where he wins at a pretty high clip. But really? I want to, so
even Nate's surprised.
So for all the listeners out there, Magic only rule sets where death is available.
The other day, it was genius, I'd say.
And you
Magic
toss
only. Usually, I use the what's his name?
Immortalis?
Thaddeus. Thaddeus.
Is that his name? He's the guy who's like doing the Karate Kid thing. You would think I would know his name. Let me.
Immortalis. Right.
No, Oster Roswell.
There you go, Alster. Yeah. I think that's the guy.
Got you. Yeah, so the play is Dallin in Magic only, and then you use the you can break out 2 silences from the Death Elemental and the neutral guy, and then you toss a Void or Void Armor, either the Murat or the Ancient Lick up front. So they're not doing any damage, and this is playing expecting that the other team is also going to throw the silences at me, and then Blight in the back for, so every hit, whether it does damage or not, the cripple still inflicts damage, and you're banking on Blight growing into a big bad evil guy with sticking poisons and collecting scavenge, and by the time you're at the front, it's too late. So
it's an interesting counter to the Immortalis, where the Immortalis and the silences, where like you just can't get any damage on, and having that cripple, it's interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a fun play.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah,
we need Death to have like a dual card, though, kind of like that dual attack card, like you have with Earth, with the magic and the range.
The Runemancer.
The Runemancer, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Runemancer Flores.
Yeah. So where I was going with that is, I love the strategy side of stuff. I love to try and think of like, what is my opponent expecting? What is my opponent not expecting, and play to that. Like the strategy side is a lot of fun. And I think for as long as the untamed summoners are present, and they're a lot of fun, as much fun as they are to play with, they're bad for the game. The like Jodin, Llama, Kitty, they single hand, like they win the match. It's not the team that you orchestrate around the summoner. Whereas I feel like Chaos Legion Rift Watchers, it's all about the team, and it's all about the synergy. It's all about the strategy, the placement, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious, you allude to an incoming influx of strategy minded gameplay being a much more, kind of highlighted focus of Splinterlands when Rebellion comes out. I'm wondering how much of that is attributable to Kitty, Llama, Jodin disappearing from the meta versus Rebellion minded stuff. Do you know what I mean? Is that a fair question?
Um, that is a good question. I'm trying to think of all the aspects of rebellion. I would say, I mean, I don't know. I think that Call Me Tim and Biz have done a great job in trying to balance things out so that it doesn't sway dramatically. It's like, oh, well, just because of this one thing, I'm gonna win. And if you don't have the money to throw around to get the one thing, then you're just never gonna win. Like that sucks. That's frustrating. No one likes that. So I think, from what I've seen, in testing and otherwise, I think we're in a good spot. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, to your point, I absolutely hate going into a match where I don't have the Untamed cards rented. It's a 14 mana poison match, and Earth is available. For a fact that this opponent is fielding Llama Mercenary, and you're going to lose. Like that. That's just, there's no way around that, and it sucks. To your point, so I'm really looking forward to, and I know Virus has really big ambitions of being, I think he's getting all of his ducks in a row to buy all the rebellion packs he can to shoot to the top of the leaderboard once Untamed is out of the modern era. So it's exciting, man. Nate, I want to ask you, Matt dropped some news around rebellion airdrops and the mechanic that's going to define airdrop points changing, and Hep and I were kind of shaking the brain bush a little bit before you hopped on to forecast a little bit, look in the crystal ball. What does that look like? And before we jump to that, I do want to ask you, with respect to the rebellion set, I know with Chaos Legion we kind of designed, or you guys designed, the legendary summoners a little bit closer to that airdrop date. Is there a shift in the philosophy towards developing the full set, including legendary summoners, or whatever you guys decide is going to be those airdrop cards as part of the initial set design, or are you guys shifting the philosophy there at all?
I'm trying to understand the question. So you're saying you're talking about the airdrops, and you're talking about the way they're distributed and whether or not they're going to be part of the set in the normal way that the cards are part of a set, or?
Yeah, so like Lily, for example, the last airdrop from Chaos Legion, I know that stats and stuff were still getting finalized, up until the point of that airdrop.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to be again. Crap. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, we got to have that stuff. Like, I do not want to be still working on stats and abilities leading up to the airdrop. That stuff needs, and I think we're all in agreement internally. We do not want to do that anymore. These things need to be fleshed out, figured out, finalized way before the airdrop actually happens. I mean, we do intend to very much improve how we schedule those things, make sure it's like clockwork, make sure we're ready to share stuff leading up to the event and all that other stuff. So I think that that should be, I mean, at least our intentions are that that'll be all sorted out well in advance.
Will it be in advance of the set being released, or do you guys like to have some more flexibility to wait to see sort of how the meta unfolds and how things might need to be adjusted?
I would say, there's a little bit of that where you want to like look at the data and see, in order to balance things properly. However, having said that, I don't know. I think ideally all of the non-custom made legendary summoners, hopefully the stats and abilities are worked out well in advance. For the legendary summoners that players are helping to help design, then unfortunately that does require at least a little bit of time, but I definitely do not want it to take as long as it took last time, where it was just like this very long drawn out process every single time. And I think we have a lot of ideas internally on how we can streamline that to make sure that we hurry up and get these characters finalized well in advance and not be, still working on them as we get closer and closer to when these cards have to be, airdropped. So yeah, that's some internal stuff we gotta work out. But we, I think we're all in agreement that we are going to improve it, and we are going to make the process a little bit quicker for the custom made summoners.
Cool. I do want to talk about the airdrop mechanics, but let's put a pin in that for a moment, real quickly. I was thinking about, and Hep, I may have mentioned this to you. The only stat that never changes on any cards in Splinterlands is mana cost. So I was thinking about, what if that was a variable that was open for leveling up, meaning, you get a legendary monster at level 1 that costs 10 mana, all the ability is unlocked, and as you progress to level 4, maybe he caps out at 6 mana. No new abilities, but he becomes more inexpensive from a mana cost perspective. Has there been any I see a little twinkle in Nate's eye.
No,
has there been
I'm just trying to
There's always a
imagine
twinkle in
this,
Nate's eye.
what you're suggesting. Basically you're saying the more powerful it gets, the greater its stats, the more abilities it gains, the less it costs. Like, so
no.
That's
so I'm suggesting like Chaos Dragon, for example.
Yeah.
It's 14 mana. It has Blast, Blinds, what else? Scattershot at level 4. So at level 1, it has Blast, Blind, Scattershot for 14 mana, but at level 4, it still has Blast, Blind, and Scattershot, but it costs 9 mana. You know what I mean? So using the mana to be the reward for leveling up your cards.
I see. No, I mean, that's an interesting take. I guess I'm not saying it's a valid idea. I guess what I would ask you is, like, when you go and combine a bazillion cards, you go on the market, you buy a whole bunch, you combine them together, and it levels up. Are you going to be more excited about, it could do blast now? Or are you more excited about, like, it costs a little bit less? Like, there's a little bit of a different sense of fulfillment or celebration to be had if you unlock a new ability versus, it's a little bit cheaper to bring out on the battlefield. So
I see what you're saying, but I would say, if it starts above 10 mana and then at level 4 it falls below 10 mana, all of a sudden you're no longer susceptible to Giant Killer, for example. But I'm just thinking from like the lower league perspective. I hate bronze with a passion. I'm stuck in bronze on my alt account. I'm so used to having all the fun abilities unlocked, and I just get pummeled in modern bronze. So I'm coming from that perspective of, like, I want the abilities. So I wonder if there's, some middle grounds where the mana can be the reward for leveling up your cards versus, the more standard route of, higher output of damage and greater HP and accumulation of abilities, that sort of stuff.
No, it's definitely an interesting idea. I don't know. I guess if Biz or Call Me Tim doesn't watch this video, then I will bring up the idea to them. In fact, I'll write it down. Next time I'll just drop it in their lap and say, hey, here you go. I'm going to walk slowly out of the room, and you do with that as you will, and see if there's any potential there. So we'll see what happens. If it happens, then you could be like, hey, that was me. You have it documented on this video that, like, hey, I thought of that. So we'll see where it goes.
Nice. That's awesome. Any other card specific stuff, Jangles? I want to know a little bit about lore, but before we get away from any artwork or other ability stuff.
Let's quickly touch on the airdrop stuff before I forget it.
Yeah.
So the mechanics. What is, so Matt alluded to the idea of, you have to retain your packs purchased from the presale in order to qualify for airdrops. You have to keep your packs or your cards in your account in order to qualify for any subsequent airdrops. That sounds like a tremendous undertaking from a tracking perspective. And Hep, credit to Hep, he came up with the good idea of maybe you're just looking at like rebellion specific bulk collection power to define if those cards have changed hands. You know, obviously you could, I guess, beat the system a little bit and swap out, 20 commons for an epic or something like that. But how much of a coding development undertaking is that to defining who qualifies for what number of minimum airdrops?
So no, there's okay, that's a good question. So let me think. How do I phrase this? And what can I say and not say? So originally, this originated from I and the creative team had brainstormed. We had been like, hey, how do we make more Rebellion cooler and more exciting? How can we make it more engaging? How can we tell a story? How can we do all of these things that we want to do? Because we want Rebellion to be as successful as possible. So during these brainstorming sessions, I had this idea. I'm not going to get into detail about what the idea was, but the idea was morphed into something rather ambitious, because that's who I am. I have these grand, ambitious ideas. So I bring it to Agrod and Matt and the powers that be. And I'm like, look, I think we should do this. The takeaway was, thankfully, it wasn't like shut down. It was like, well, that's actually a good idea, Nate. Let's explore this. Once Matt got a hold of the idea, it was like, well, Nate, this is freaking awesome. We're going to use a lot of this. But for purposes of the Rebellion launch, what we got to do with airdrop stuff, because it was related to all that, I was like, let's take the core part out and let's make this work now rather than later, sooner rather than later. And then all this other stuff you want to do with it, we'll kind of plug that into land. We'll figure out how to do something more. I was like, okay, of course I want to be ambitious right now. I want to do it now. But I'm like, I can see where his head is at. And after talking to Cryptomancer and, collaborating internally on whoever's going to be working on this type of stuff, then we got it streamlined down to something that is very reasonable, that can be launched with minimal effort and can be done in time in order to make the whole airdrop distribution be not only more interesting, but make a lot more sense economically for the game's ecosystem. So I think, shoot, I mean, I wish I could say more, but, I will say that the system that we're hoping to design out should hopefully make it so that, like I think what Matt alluded to in the previous, town square or whatever, it's like, we don't want it to where people are buying way more cards than they need. And then they max out their deck or get it to the league they want, and then they have all these extra cards. What do they do with them? Well, now that they got whatever pre-sale rewards or benefits, they have no need for them, and they dump them on the market. And guess what? This new card set, all the cards go lower in value, and it's like, that sucks. What could if we could formulate a way to where you want to hold on to the cards, and that the cards hold their value. Heck, wouldn't it be cool to release a set and the cards start appreciating in value almost right away? That would be insane. And that's something like, hey, maybe that happens or doesn't happen, but if we could push things that direction, then great. I think that's a good direction to run in.
Nate, I missed what your idea was. Would you mind clarifying what that was?
It's you'll see it. You'll see when we make the announcements and all that other stuff, and maybe some of you will guess on what the ambitious version of the plan was. But I think even with the streamlined version that we're running with, in order to give more value to the not just the airdrops but the set as a whole, I think people will really appreciate this new way of doing things. And I think that for those who are observant enough, to kind of read between the lines, I think you'll be able to guess potentially after you see what it is that we're doing, how that will somehow possibly relate to land and other things we could do in the future. I think there's a lot of potential there.
So it seems like you're saying this is not just we're going to figure out a way to track this based on collection power or something. This is almost like not necessarily like an in-game mechanic, but almost like a whole new kind of like mechanic or experience or something that's going to involve some sort of player involvement or engagement in the game. Do you think that'd be accurate?
A little bit more so than before. I mean, before you just bought packs and there was a number on the screen, and it's like, once a month you go push a claim button. That was basically the extent of what we were asking people to do. So it's no big surprise that people just bought packs, got their number to go up, and then said, well, I don't need to keep the packs. Let's dump them on the market, or let's like you know what I mean? So so again, it boils down to like the beginning of the call where I was like about utility. How can we add layers of utility every step of the way to prevent people from just like, grabbing something and then tossing it in the market and then having, asset prices go down rather than up? That nobody wants that. So this is, hopefully this is a step in the right direction.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, so I want to know if there's anything new you can share about the lore or any kind of the we got sort of the quick elevator pitch on what the rebellion was from Splinterfest. Is there, anything more you guys have worked on?
Yeah, I mean, for those who actually read the Tome of Chaos stories, Rebellion's going to have a lot of really cool Easter eggs. Characters from those stories will finally become cards. Okay. The overall narrative for Rebellion puts us 5 years into the future after the events of the not just the invasion, but after the rise of the Empire. So Chaos Legion was mostly about the invasion and those events. Then an empire rose up from the ashes of that invasion, and now 5 years after that, we're finally rolling around to the events that are going to happen with Rebellion. So there's a lot of I don't know. The narrative team has done a tremendous job in tying all the pieces together. And there's a lot of folks out in the community who are like, lore, cares? Does it really matter? Like, why even talk about it? Why even blah, blah, blah? And I will say that, maybe it's not, it's as long as we remain a rapid strategy card game, and if that is our whole ambition to just stop there and call ourselves just this card game that we play, then they would be right. There's no really point in going any further with the lore than we do. However, I still dream that could be a major differentiator between us and other card games. I mean, when you think about it, like, okay, you got Magic the Gathering, you got Hearthstone, you got games like that, right? What's our differentiator between us and them? Well, we say, well, we're Web3. We're a Web3. Our cards are NFTs. You can own those. Okay, well, you're right. That's a differentiator between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering. So now we have differentiated ourselves. But, oh, wait a minute. In the blockchain space, where NFTs are a thing, not only are they the thing, there's something that is very proud. They're all over the freaking place. It's no surprise that a lot of the projects say, well, yeah, we want to make a card game too. So you could throw a rock and hit a dozen different blockchain projects where it is a card game, a strategy card game. So suddenly saying that we have NFTs and we're based on blockchain isn't quite the differentiator that maybe you would like. So how do we differentiate ourselves from those card games? Well, in my mind, my personal opinion anyways, as VP of Creative is, well, I think the storytelling, the RPG aspects could be potentially in the future a very strong differentiator, to where as we build out land and we tap into the potential that land represents, then suddenly we're not just a card game anymore. Suddenly you're a battle mage using enchanted cards in the arena, and then suddenly there's world events. Maybe it's in the story mode or campaign mode or otherwise, but eventually you are traversing the land of Praetoria with a satchel full of these cards, and you are doing what? Are you fighting a boss? Are you in a raid with your guild? Are you exploring a dungeon cooperatively with other people? Are you in PvP or player versus environment? What kind of gameplay do you guys see in your heads for the future of the Splinterlands ecosystem? And then you talk a step back and ask yourself, well, wow, that's a lot different than, let's say, Gods Unchained or, you know, any number of other blockchain-based card games out there. There's an RPG element to Splinterlands. It's not just a card game. It's like they're really hooking me into this world. There's world building, and there's layers of geopolitical, you know, kingdoms and cultures and things going on. And suddenly all those things matter. The storytelling matters. And the reason why I love that as a potential differentiator for Splinterlands itself is, number one, it does set ourselves apart from not just the other blockchain card games, but pretty much almost all card games in the world. Like, right? I mean, I think that's nothing to sneeze at. I think that's freaking cool. The other thing, though, is the emotional investment. I think I've touched on it lightly in other discussions or Discord or other places, but essentially in my mind, you have this range of participation that starts off as an account level. I am an account, you know, and then eventually, if you decide that you're going to do something in the ecosystem, then you graduate from account to a user. But a user might just be an investor, someone who participates in the liquidity pool or buys SPS token or buys a collection, but they don't play with it. Once you start playing with it, you graduate from account to user and from user to a player. Okay, now we're talking. Now we're cooking with gas. If you're a player, then you're actively engaging in the mechanics of the game. You are mentally stimulated by the strategy of the game. And that is great. And that's where most games stop, at least card games, at least trading card games. That's usually where they stop, where, you know, after you've played the game a million times and you get tired of it, then you're like, well, I'll step away from that game. I'll go do something else. And maybe they come back or maybe they don't, right? But I think the real thing we should be striving for is to take players from player and graduate to the final step, which in my head, I call that battle mage. A battle mage is not just mentally stimulated by the strategic, you know, mechanics. They're not just find it appealing that they could play to earn or own their NFTs or like all the ROI stuff or the DeFi stuff. A battle mage level person who is interacting with the Splinterlands ecosystem is someone who is emotionally invested, not just financially invested. They are completely immersed in the world building, the characters, the storytelling, the overall narrative. They want to be in the narrative. They want to be able to talk with the denizens of this world. They want to be able to make allies and enemies. They want to log in and see more than just ROI and freaking their collection and a card game. They want to see the world that their other life, you know. That's the experience that I would love to eventually bring to the players of Splinterlands, is to allow them to graduate to that final battle mage level and I think that's a powerful. I think that's where narrative comes in mind. That's where the lore comes into play. That's the storytelling. And even though it doesn't seem like much now, I think it is setting a strong foundation for where we could take the game in the future. And if we don't have that foundation, then what is our hope of ever getting some sort of emotional investment out of our players? And if we have no emotional investment in our players, it's nothing more than financial investment that's keeping them engaged. Then it's no surprise that when the market hits a bear that we lose people and we have to wait for the bull for anyone to care. That's not where we want to be. I want people to be excited about the characters in the world. I want them to be excited about the actual gameplay and the emotional. They want to celebrate the emotional experience of it all, and that the blockchain parts and the ROI and all that other stuff is gravy. I mean, ideally, that's where I would love for us to be. And if we can get there, then and we're able to somehow find that balance between financial and emotional investment. Whoa, now that's the secret sauce to me. That's where now we're humming. Now it's like, now we're appealing to everybody, whether you're mainstream or crypto geek or whatever the heck. I don't care who you are. You're going to find something appealing and engaging about the ecosystem, and we will hopefully maybe someday stop on this roller coaster ride of bear, bull, and it'll just be a nice, even upward ride to the moon, right? Because, we're all here for different reasons, both emotional as well as financial. So that's where I see the narrative and the storytelling. That's where I'm hoping things go eventually at some point. And that's why I care. That's why if people say, Nate, why you bother? Well, that's why I bother, because I think long term, that's the secret sauce. I think that's what's going to get us to where we want to go. If all you care about is your appreciating assets and your ROI, well, then help me improve that for you, because I think this is what's going to help us get there. In addition to everything else, yes, tokenomics, economy, mechanics, that's all important stuff, but don't discount the power of strong storytelling that could evoke emotion from the player. That could be extremely powerful too.
Nate, I gotta say, man, I really love how high and you're pushing the ceiling with all this stuff, and you're ripping out the ceiling and shooting for the stars with your ambitions for this stuff. And I have to think, maybe I'm assuming a bit too much, but I have to think that there's buy-in from the company to this point. The lore has continued, and it's not just continued, but it's expanded in depth, and you guys are planning 5 years in advance as far as the the narrative goes with Rebellion. And I would have to guess that what is after Rebellion is already mapped out as well, or at least the bones. I'm sure where does this story go beyond Rebellion. Is that a fair assumption that there is buy-in for this sort of long-term vision for a PvE and potentially all the other stuff that could come with land coming to fruition?
Well, I would say that I haven't really had any serious discussions about that sort of buy-in after the recent restructuring. So I can't say, I can't make any guarantees as to whether any of that stuff I just said will evolve into something. But I will say that that I've been very fortunate in that the 5 years that I've been working with Aggro and Matt and everyone else, they have given me wide amount of latitude over the years. I feel like I've gained enough trust in order to for them to for them to be able to depend on me to be a good steward of the company's resources. So typically, if Matt says, well, how long is it going to take to do this? Then he already knows. He's been working with me for 5 years. He knows that, well, whatever date I give him, it's going to take me 2 days. It's going to give me a week. It's going to take me whatever I say. It's going to have a little bit of, Nate baked into it, meaning he knows that, like, okay, Nate has these high standards. He's always shooting for the stars, but Nate's also a realist. He knows that we have company responsibilities and corporate needs that need to be met, and we can't just take freaking 3 years to do something. We need to do it in 3 weeks. So Nate gets that too. So we have this, I feel like we have this understanding to where, like, if we agree that this layout or this shopping page experience or this, that, or the other has to be done a week from today, then he knows. He's not asking me, well, why is it going to take a week? Instead, he says, okay, in a week, I need everything done. And then I just get it done. He doesn't ask me, well, how's the artwork going to look? Or what's the story you're telling? Or how's, how's the UI going to be designed, or all that stuff. He doesn't worry about it. He just knows that, okay, Nate's going to make sure it gets done, and then it'll be done in a week. And then Nate and the creative department are going to squeeze in as much quality and as much cool stuff as they could possibly do in the time they have, which in this example would be a week. So I'm thankful for that, because he could, I mean, he could just say, well, Nate, I don't want you, I want it stripped, I want it MVP, and I don't want you to give me anything extra than what I'm asking for. But he never does that. He's like, Nate, do what you can in the time you have. And then I say, okay. And then I do it. So yeah, I don't know if you want to call that buy-in or not, but it's enough buy-in for me to be able to, it gives me enough wiggle room to operate, to do as much as I can to make the game as good as it can be. And then, and I think in the near future, the plan is to sit down and really plan things out for, like, not just next week or next month, but for years in advance. Like, what is the vision and how are we going to achieve it? And we're just break it out. And it's not like we don't do that, but I think he wants to do it even more than we already do now, and which is great. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. I definitely share that vision. I think that'll be great. I'm wondering if there's any new races or characters you're especially excited about for Land, or sorry, not for Land, for Rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the Tomacao stories. I think that, those people who are fans of those stories, they were like, well, how come this character or that character is not a card? And you'll start seeing them as cards now, and it'll be cool. And I think to take it a step further, see, I don't know if anything's going to come of it yet. We'll see. I hope so. But all the characters in the Rebellion set were carefully crafted by the narrative team for purposes of adding more of that emotional investment that I talked about earlier. I want to make it so that eventually, maybe it doesn't happen with this set, or maybe it does. Maybe it happens with a set afterwards. I don't know. All I know is that the objective here is that at some point in time, we want it to where people buy cards by virtue of who those characters are, how, what their story is. We'd love, in fact, the narrative team has literally fleshed out everything that we would need to do in order to make all the characters in Rebellion set part of this grand storytelling experience, whether you want to call that story mode or campaign mode or whatever, right? Maybe that's a little ambitious. We'll see if anything comes of it. But in case the opportunity presents itself, I guess what I'm saying is we're ready. We're ready to do those things because we've already kind of planned it out in those spreadsheets we mentioned earlier. Lots of spreadsheets. So creative is always looking to be ready to pivot and adapt and hopefully inject more emotional investment, more narrative, more storytelling. And every time the opportunity presents itself, we're going to jump on it. And we're able to jump on those situations because we've prepared accordingly. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. But I will say that a lot more time has been invested in making sure that there's a cohesive storytelling experience, not just at a high level, but at a granular level between every single character in the set, in case we're called into action to do more with the Rebellion set. The groundwork has been laid to do more with the Rebellion set than any set previous.
I love how forward you guys are thinking. It's not just Rebellion, but you guys are thinking, 5-10 years from now. Nate, I want to ask you, I realize we're pushing 2 hours at this point, so I want to zoom out a little bit and ask you a little bit of a bigger picture question. So you mentioned earlier in the episode that, obviously if you were at the helm for these past 5 years, you would have made very different decisions. You're a different personality. You've got different visions for for stuff than what has fleshed out for the last 5 years. You as a player, what do you think is, so 1.5 Rebellion, obviously critical to the short, medium term future of this game that, we're all here for and we love to be a part of. But what do you kind of pinpoint if you had the power to identify what should be next as the next critical piece to the evolution of Splinterlands and our longer term survival? What would you highlight as the next imperative piece to put into the machine beyond 1.5 and Rebellion?
Hey, this is first of all, I would not want to be CEO. Like that is, I would not want to be behind the helm, because that looks like to have the weight of the company and the community on your shoulders. Heck no. It's a lot easier to play backseat driver. And then if the driver ignores me, I'm just happy that I'm able to be in the car to have an opinion. That's enough for me. I definitely would not want to be in the driver's seat permanently. Like that's a terrifying prospect. I think anyone who says that they want to be doesn't understand what it is that they're saying or they're asking. So let me get that out of the way. Yeah. But I will say that in this fantasy scenario, like Nate is deciding what happens next, then that's I don't know if that's a smart thing to put Nate in that position, because Nate is going to like throw tokenomics and economy and all this stuff to the wind to be like, who cares about your ROI? Let's have fun. That's what Nate's going to do. So you got to be very careful about asking what Nate wants. Nate would probably be like, hey, I think a big part of, it's not a secret project, but something that, I don't think I've even made a secret of it, but essentially on the creative side, we call it Project Battle Mage. That's essentially all the ideas that we have about how to make the player feel like they're an actual battle mage, not someone sitting at a computer working on their card collection and checking peak monsters, but an actual battle mage in this world. And basically we have all these little ideas on the creative side. We're like, oh, this would be cool, and this would be cool, and this would be cool. And all the ideas have one thing in common: to make the player feel more like they're engaged with this fantasy world and they're a part of that fantasy world. And thus it's kind of like Project Battle Mage suite of products or suite of ideas, right? So I would definitely love, I don't know if there's much value in it as far as revenue to the company, the DAO, the players' financial, what their collections are worth or any of that stuff. Like I don't know. Project Battle Mage is all about really just fun and making you feel like a battle mage. And if that directly, we have some ideas on how that could directly or indirectly help the community and the economy and the company and all that stuff. But really, at the forefront of it all is like just injecting a sense of fun. Really, that's really what I love to do is make the game feel less like spreadsheet DeFi and more like, oh, this is fun, and wanting to click the share to social media button to share, XYZ thing and people see it and say, whoa, that looks like that person's having a lot of fun. I want to have fun too. Like that's essentially what I would love to see more of. And we'll see, maybe now's not the time if we're kind of like, we made some cutbacks so we don't have to be in hardcore survival mode, but still, whether or not that's the best thing to do next or not, I don't know. But if you ask my opinion, then that's what I would love to work on next if possible.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think a lot of what you speak to is it definitely would resonate with a big chunk of the audience, being the Splinterlands community in by way of retention, right? Like I think a lot of the folks that were so excited about No Bot Modern and Battle Helper being removed from Modern, that's the audience that I think would respond really, really well to exactly what you're saying. is the fun, the changes in the gameplay, and how do I get like, the status and that sort of intangible stuff that's not necessarily tied to any sort of financial value, but it's ego stuff in the game, which we all want. I want to be able to flex that I'm a battle mage sort of thing. So yeah, I love where you're going.
The original name was a social flex economy, is what internally the creative department referred to, and before we finally said, let's call it Project Battle Mage. So we'll see if that ever sees the light of day or not. I mean, it's tough to say.
Well, I think I've identified the name of this episode: Social Flex Economy. What are you thinking, Hap? Anything else rattling around for you?
Yeah, one thing that came up in the town square the other day, Matt talked briefly about skins, and someone I guess raised a question about community artwork being used for skins, and I was wondering, if you as someone who said, before stuff goes out the door, you want to be able to have that control over it, to make sure that it meshes well with the storyline and the direction you guys are headed. What's your opinion on community artwork, but be it for skins or if it's for card ideas themselves or anything related with land? How do you feel about giving some sort of control or some sort of input from the community from your perspective of what you guys have to do on the team?
Yeah, that's been brought up before.
And then we got Lily Shilpa.
I mean, I don't want to be the downer, but yeah, usually when because that idea has cropped up so many times, and every single time I've given my opinion, like, no, I would not do that. I would not inject fan art into the game as much as I would like to. We lose that polished experience where it feels cohesive and consistent, and suddenly, and then that kind of spills into something that that you guys said earlier, which is with, let's say as we get into a second stage of battle with item and spell cards and things of that nature, and you got to analyze the battlefield at a glance. I can only imagine if like you had like 14 zillion different Lord of Darknesses, and they all look dramatically different. Some are hyper realistic, some look like a freaking Garfield cartoon, other ones look like they came out of an Adventure Time episode, and some look like they look so different from one another that you don't know what the heck you're looking at. Meanwhile, TikTok, the timer's going down, and you're like, okay, you're basically hovering over every single card, just trying to figure out what the heck it is. Oh, that's a Lord of Darkness? I didn't see that one before. Now half your timer's gone, and now what happens is you have a frustrating player experience. Now, people have come up with like, well, what if you hover over it and it shows the default card that is universal? Or what if you do this, or what if you do that? Yes, there are workarounds to this situation, right? But that doesn't get around the fact that it still presents us with a very inconsistent world building experience. If I'm trying to convince you that you're a battle mage in the arena and that you are basically the hero in like your favorite anime episode, right? The suspension of the belief isn't there anymore if there's different stylistic character art in every single card. Like suddenly you don't feel like you're a hero in anime anymore. Now it feels like you're playing a card game, and the card game just has different skins associated to it. And that's not really what I was trying to accomplish with the narrative and the storytelling and all of that. That's why I feel like if we do integrate skins, I think it makes sense. Like, it's no secret that creative has been working on skins for a while now, and that that we take the character at the time we conceptualize it, and we create different versions of that character. The version that you guys see is on the card. The version that you don't see is the skin, and we have those in a storeroom in the back in some boxes ready to kind of bring out when the time is right. And that spills a little into some of the ideas that we have for Project Battle Mage. I mean, I don't want skins to be like they were before. People are all day long, yeah, just put up more skins on the shop page. Well, we saw where that was not a big success. People will say, oh yeah, they'll be successful. Look at how all these companies make $1 million money with skins. Okay, but we tried it. We did skins. No one bought them. Complete failure. No one wanted to buy them. If you have money, are you going to buy a skin that's worth nothing, or are you going to buy some cards or card packs or something that's actually going to make you money or appreciate, or you could use in rank play and blah, blah, blah. No one bought the skins. The only time people bought the skins was with a year-long airdrop, when we assigned airdrop points to the skins. Oh, now we sold the skins once you had a financial incentive, right? So, so I don't want to repeat that mistake. I don't want to go through all this hard work to make these amazing skins just so that I could put them up the same way we did last time and they just flop and then we never do them again. I want them to be successful. And I think there's a right way and a wrong way to implement skins. And it's not that way. Other people have had the idea of like, well, how about a battle pass? Yeah, that's what we need. Let's do a battle pass. That's going to save everything. It's going to provide financial stability to the company, and we'll give away these skins as the rewards for participating in the battle pass, and it'll bring the company a little bit of revenue and blah, blah, blah. But in my opinion, I mean, think about it. Think about a battle pass, right? What are we asking people to pay? What do they think is reasonable for a battle pass? Like $20? I mean, more than $20? What are people going to think is you know, what are they expecting to pay for a battle pass? Let's say for a month. Let's say it's $20, right? $20 divided by 4 weeks. That means what? $5 a week. So basically, now take that $5 and divide it by 7 days in a week. So essentially, for buying a battle pass, you're going to get what for free? For your $20. Well, if you're going to get skins, that means I'm going to give you $20 worth of skins over the course of the month, right? Which means that if you're making about a $5 value per week in skins over the course of 7 days, then to me, that is devaluing the skin. That's like, I want this skin to be this amazing, cool thing where people are willing to pay like $5, $10, $20 to have this cool social flex, right? But if we're just giving them away for pennies, like, you know, how many skins do we have to give away in order for people to feel like they got their value from spending that $20 on a battle pass, right? So at what point, if we keep doing that, do skins become like this meaningless whatever? Like I play Marvel Snap, and that game is driven by all these different skins, right? But after a certain point, you just stop caring. It's just like, you know, the skin becomes meaningless. It gets devalued to the point to where the skins are worth almost nothing. Like, who cares? And we're back to square one again with the first way that we try to sell skins. I don't think that's the way to go either. I think if we were to introduce skins, here's what I would like to see. I'm going to take my VP of Creative hat off, and I'm talking as Nate, because I do not want to be known as speaking for the company on this. This has not been approved in any way. This is just ideas like Creative has on their end that we wish could happen someday, but we don't know if they ever will. So when I say what I'm going to say, don't expect these things to happen. Just know that this is getting a glimpse into Nate's head, right? I think that if we introduce skins, I would love it to be based on what Creative is calling a reputation system, so that there is a purpose behind the skins other than just a social flex. It's like, let's say you're in rank play and you have a Dark Eternal skin on one of your death characters. In order to make you feel like a battle mage, you need to realize that there are people, spectators out in the stands, and they're rooting for you. And then they see you, let's say, maybe not a Dark Eternal skin, maybe you bring out an Order of the Silver Shield skin on one of your characters. Holy crap, those spectators are going to lose their minds. They got their foam fingers. They're like, number one. They see the skin pop up on your manifestation that you summon with your battle cards, and they're like, whoa, look at that. And they're high-fiving each other. And guess what? By using that skin, you built reputation now with the Order of the Silver Shield, and you gained like 5 points if you win the battle or whatever using that skin. Whoa, now you use the reputation to unlock stuff in a store, maybe to get access to, you know, maybe you had a common skin and now you're going to access the store and use your reputation and some DEC or vouchers or something to unlock Maybe you need so much reputation before it unlocks. You say, oh, I really want that skin, but I need like 500 reputation with Order of the Silver Shield in order to unlock access to it. And once it unlocks, you spend your DC and vouchers to get it. And now that thing gives you a modifier to your reputation. And that's why we called it a social flex economy, right? Because it's a whole nother economy, but it's social based. It's reputation based. It's not just a social flex to the other players who are like, oh, where did you get that skin? But it's also a social flex to the fictional NPCs in this game world, right? There's a little bit of player versus environment, especially if you have a story mode involved, and you have player versus player fulfillment when you're in just regular rank play, right? So I think that in doing so, what that ends up doing is it has the beginnings of taking the idea of battle pass, but instead of like square peg in a round hole, it morphs battle pass into something that makes more sense for the Splinterlands ecosystem. So there's, I could talk literally for hours about all the stuff that I wish we could do, or that I would like to do or see happen in the future in regards to, that emotional investment, the whole battle mage experience, and how skins play into that, and everything else, all the cosmetics, all the aesthetics. I'd love to make it so that players could customize their avatars like you shared at Splinter Fest. I'd love to make it so that you have your own player housing in the game and all that stuff. You could decorate it just how you want. I want people to feel like they are in this game world as a battle mage. And if I could pull that off someday, I mean, I think that's really my passion project. Is probably, that's that type of stuff. I would love to see that happen. I think when that stuff happens, then people will have that emotional engagement and that emotional investment, and then they'll want to play the game by virtue of that emotional investment that they made in the game, regardless of their finances. I think that's very powerful, and I'd love to see skins play a part in that.
All right, we got a straight answer, Eddie, for one question, so we've done the best we could.
Great question, great response, Nate. Yeah, I love the vision for where these things are going. I feel like you're such a natural fit for the VP of Creative at Splinterlands, and I think everything that you're talking about, it goes hand in hand with Matt's greater vision of what this game could turn into longer term. And yeah, man, I just want to thank you for taking the time to share the vision, and all your, kudos to you for your ambiguous answers. Job well done. Nothing too top secret revealed. Any final thoughts?
Nope.
Any last words from you, Nate?
Just, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's community members like you guys that, that keep the bus moving forward, that keep people getting engaged and excited. I mean, I love watching your guys' videos and the other Splinterlands influencer videos. It's funny because I think I learn as much from you guys and your videos as you guys think that you learn from the team members. There's a lot of it very much feels like the community and the team are hand in hand in lockstep doing this together. And that's just, again, I can't keep saying it enough. That's a very cool, that's a cool experience. I don't think there's many places you can go and feel that way. So so for those of you out there who are either watching this video or making your own videos or blog articles or talking in Discord, and keep doing it, keep it up, because we are seeing you guys, we're hearing you guys, we are factoring that in, even if it doesn't feel like it. If it doesn't feel like anyone is hearing you, I guarantee you that the team is watching these videos. We're reading Discord. We are these ideas and thoughts and sentiments that you guys are expressing, whether directly or indirectly, these things are bleeding into the internal team discussions. They really are. We do value all the feedback and everything that you guys are saying, and it does influence things. Outside of just the more direct DAO proposal votes, you guys are influencing the direction that things are taking, whether you intended to or not. So just keep it up. Love all you guys.
Well, Nate, I will tell you that I will feel and embrace my realm of influence when one of two things happen. One, Dallin gets the supporting cast to absolutely wreck the meta in death, which I don't think is very likely. And two, if Biz and was it Call Me Tim, if they like the mana shift as the X factor on leveling up cards, when one of those things happen, I'll take you for your word. No, just playing.
All right. I'll see what we can do.
Well, man, we really appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate having you to steer the creative ship forward and upward and onward. And absolute pleasure hanging out with you for a couple of hours, and look forward to, providing clarity to all these ambiguities that were dropped today on the episode here in the next couple of weeks.
No, for sure.
Yes, a lot to ponder over. There's a lot to think about. Trying to figure it all out, get ahead of the game. I might have to listen to this episode a couple times, I think. So we'll piece it all together soon enough, I'm sure.
Awesome. All right, Nate. Thank you again, man. And for everybody out there listening, you have been listening to
The People's Guild.